ensayar rápido, no te sabes poner pie. Lo ensayas rápido, no te sabes poner pie.
Hi, welcome back to our last segment of Civil Discourse Now. I'm Mark Small.
And I'm Paul Ogden.
And our guests today are Tony Long, who's a candidate for Congress in the 5th Congressional District, and Matt Stone, who's a sometimes guest on the show. Tony, what's your contact information if somebody wanted to go to look at your campaign issues and stuff?
It's simply TonyLongForCongress.com.
Okay. And Matt, forget about you. We were talking. What's your blog?
IndyStudent.blogspot.com. Also contribute at IndyPolitics.org.
Okay, right before we broke the last segment, we were talking about the impact that a Richard Lugar loss in the Senate primary could have on Indiana as far as presidential race. Everybody thinks that this is a solidly blue state. Went red last time, but...
No, it's all...
I'm sorry. See, I always think that the Republicans are going to call Democrats commies, and so I think of red. And instead...
It's part of the liberal media plan to make us make Republicans...
It used to be the case. Republicans used to be blue and Democrats used to be red, and I swear, and it somehow in the 80s, it got switched, and I don't know why.
I'll tell you why.
Because Democrats got called.
Tell you, it's all them hippies. All the hippies. Got everybody thinking all confused. But everybody has considered this state to be solidly Republican. The speculation was that President Obama wouldn't spend any time or money appreciably here to try and get votes that he wasn't going to get anyway, because we've got a winner-takes-all electoral college set up in Indiana.
There's only two states that don't have a electoral college, all winner-takes-all. It's Maine, which is usually a pretty blue state, and I think Nebraska. And usually they tend to have maybe one electoral college vote that dissents from...
Well, and Nebraska's weird anyway because they have a unicameral legislature, which, just a single house. Yeah. But in terms of the Senate primary, if Richard Lugar loses the Senate primary, and this is how I see it, and you guys know what I've said before we went on, is that all of a sudden a lot of people would be really concerned about Murdoch being the United States Senator from Indiana. There might be a lot more people prone to vote in the general just to vote on that position. That in turn could lead, if those people are going to be voting for Murdoch, they're going to be voting for president possibly too. That would possibly bring in more votes for President Obama. Then that would feed itself, where you'd see more money coming in for President Obama. Suddenly this state isn't so solidly whatever color it is. And it has the potential for affecting congressional districts like the 5th, which has demographics that aren't so solid as other people thought they were going to be.
I think it's worth pointing out the 5th district, towns like Marion, Indiana, towns like Kokomo, these are the types of people, even though they could vote Republican, they could vote Democrat, because lots of these people are working people. They don't make a lot of money. They make some, but they could vote for the right Democrat if the right Democrat was on the ballot.
Well, Tony, you live in Howard County. People there, I think it'd be accurate for me to say, are pissed off right now. I mean, people are every place.
Everywhere you go, people are upset. They want to, I hear a lot, if they're in office, I'm voting against them type talk when I'm around the district.
So it wouldn't be so much somebody identifying a candidate with party for their vote. They'd be identifying the person either because they're running against the incumbent or because they're saying something that the person wants to hear.
Yeah, it may be somebody that's kind of running against the establishment, which I seem to be.
I kind of caught the drift in that, especially from like the narratives that I read about the support your opponent in the primary has obtained. And I don't know, how do you counter that? You're on our show today, and I really appreciate your being here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do to counter the opponent who has all that much money and has gotten endorsement of the party?
Well, there's really no way to counter. All you do is keep running the race the best you can. Keep putting out your message that you think that you believe in, and I put out the message that I believe in, and I believe I can make a difference in Washington. I've had to deal with a lot of hard issues throughout my 30 years of bargaining, and I'm no stranger to adversity.
Well, we were talking on the phone yesterday when I called you to tell you about the change in who's going to be on the panel today, and we were talking about war, and if for example you were a member of Congress, do you think that they should have to declare an act of war in order to put our military personnel overseas fighting?
Absolutely.
And I'm not talking about if we're attacked. I mean, that's assumed. If we're attacked, the president can do. But I mean, if we're going to send people into some place like Afghanistan or Iraq or something like that, they've been kind of higgledy-piggledy about it. They'll just kind of toss people in and toss money after them.
Yeah, they normally put them in, and they hope Congress will buy in after the fact.
Sure. And usually they do. Usually there's a couple people who are like, oh, that's taking away congressional authority, but most of Congress has ceded that type of authority to the executive branch.
Usually because it's very popular at the time too.
Well,
to support the president.
Wars oftentimes are really popular at the beginning. The German people in 1914 were ecstatic over the fact that Germany was going to be invading the rest of Europe. But then in 1918 they weren't so favorable to the war. But also, when you look at a declaration of war, or you look at how wars have functioned, like Afghanistan and Iraq have basically become huge sucks for money. We've just dumped billions upon billions into those two places.
Say trillion. We probably spent $1 trillion easily over there.
And we're building schools and highways over there, and bridges and dams, and those aren't being built here. And we could be spending.
The Iraqis actually have a universal health care system.
Pike Township, we knocked down a 15-year-old school to build another one. We do that all the time.
I know, but we could be building more of those and more highways and more bridges and employing people here instead of over there, Paul.
Well, I'm not opposed to the fact we shouldn't be spending money over there.
Okay.
But you always come on here on your show and make the argument.
I didn't say it was my show. I just said I bought the equipment.
It's going to be my show too.
Yeah, but about cutting education, and I don't agree we've cut education at all. We really spent a ton of money on K through 12 education, and that level has gone way up over the years, far above the inflation rate. If I want to get into other issues, what are some other issues out there, Tony?
I think, the other issues, one is, I think our tax codes are broken. We're going to have to take a look at taxes, and that's going to be very unpopular.
What about the corporate tax rate?
The corporate tax rate, I'm proposing that we lower the corporate tax rate. That sometimes differs from some Democrat views. I think we've got to basically create an environment where business wants to invest and maybe bring back some jobs that's been outsourced to this country. So I'm proposing a maximum 25% and with a floor of 20%. So you'll pay no less than 20, no more than 25. And I think that can be a competitive worldwide tax rate.
What about the Bush tax cuts?
I think those have to go away, and we have to redo the system.
For all the tax brackets?
All tax brackets has to be revisited. We have to look. We cannot tax people at the poverty rate, and I'd be against that. But there's some people that's getting more back out of the tax system than they put in, and that's just absurdity, in my opinion. For you to get more back than what you owe, that has to be. And we're not just doing that at the corporate level. We're doing that at other levels, other income levels. We have to stop that.
I remember watching a clip. I saw a clip on YouTube. Some senator was quizzing the Treasury chairman about something. He said something to the effect of, "If Congress went away for 10 years and did nothing, wouldn't we save more money by doing nothing than if we did just by passing Simpson Bowles?" Because lots of these acts, are temporary acts for 5 years, 10 years, like the Bush tax for 10 years. So if Congress just stopped doing all these things and let all these temporary acts expire, you would actually save more money than what would happen if you passed the Simpson Bowles plan proposed by the Obama administration or by the Ryan budget proposed by the Republican Congress.
Correct.
I just find that really interesting that we got all these temporary tax breaks, these temporary little fixes that kind of put Band-Aid band-aids,
Right, Band-Aids.
on the problem,
Correct.
and then they're unpopular. You can't if you just let them last, then they last, but it's very unpopular to let them lapse.
What about energy in terms of encouraging, trying to encourage us to get off of dependence on other countries for our energy?
Well, I believe we need to drill. I think we have to look at basically all avenues that we have for our own energy independence, and we may have to start drilling in places that we haven't drilled in the past. So I know that our production is up now as far as percentage that we're drilling, but I think there's more room for improvement. And I know natural gas, and there's a lot of avenues that we haven't tapped. I don't think we've tapped the sun at all the way we could be tapping it. And so we have to look at alternative measures, and we have to get off our energy dependence on foreign oil. But right now we can't do that. I think it'll be 10 years before we can become energy independent.
Well, there's a big wind farm on I-65 going up to Chicago, and half the time you see half those windmills aren't turning.
Yeah,
and it's not because there's not a demand for electricity here. It's just that they're not getting the right price. So I was looking at who owns those windmills, because I thought, well, okay, they're owned by the Dutch and the British. There's only one that has part ownership by a United States entity. Otherwise, those are foreign-owned corporations that are taking that electricity that we generate here in Indiana and peddling it on the market because they can transfer electricity on grids like that.
The windmills, though, I think they're not blowing. They're not turning because they're not blowing. They don't physically stop the windmills. They'd still be spinning even if they're not generating.
No, half the windmills are going. There's a steady wind. They're shutting those windmills down because they're not getting the right price on the market for selling the electricity from that windmill at that particular time. Check out the Enron scandal. They were marketing energy like that, and really altering the markets.
Wind varies depending on where you're standing. So you could be staying one place and get wind and not another place.
Paul?
So all the windmills aren't going to turn the same.
Sometime we'll go up I-65
I've seen that work.
and you can see for yourself, they have some of them going and some not.
Join us next time on Civil Discourse Now, where we all get in a van and drive up to 65.
No, we'll take the Amtrak. What about subsidies for Amtrak, for example?
Well, subsidies. We have to consider some subsidies. I haven't really looked into it that much in depth, but we have to consider subsidies. So we have to be open to that.
What about the post office? Because I remember when I was younger that the post office would be open for till midnight on tax day, but I was filing my taxes very late because I screwed up the e-filing stuff, so I had to mail them in. And there's no extended hours for the post office anymore. So what's the post office's role in today's electronic world?
I think the post office still has an active role. I think it's a mistake to cut down all these close these processing centers and cut back. I think that there's still an active role. A lot of people still need the mail, and I'm against going to a 5-day service.
A lot of people will go on the internet to order something, and it's delivered by the United States Postal Service.
That's correct.
And the Postal Service, like they say in the commercials, pays for itself. The postage. The reason that they're in debt right now is because a Republican Congress pushed through a requirement that they prepay their pensions by like a decade or something.
Advanced it too far.
Yeah, advanced it way too far, and it's really hurt the operations of the United States Postal Service.
It's one of the most successful things in the government. If we can't manage something that self-sustains, what can the government do? They want to get out of the postal business. I don't understand why we want to cut back on these postal workers and cut down close these processing centers.
The Postal Service and Medicare are two examples of the most efficient bureaucracies.
We probably should say something, Matt. There's spelling.
But we're out of time here. This has been Civil Discourse Now. Our guests have been Tony Long, congressional candidate for 5th District, Matt Stone, Paul Ogden is my co-host. Gentlemen, we've had fun today. Thank you for coming on to the program. Tony, good luck in Tuesday's primary on the 8th. I'm Mark Small, signing off. Have a nice week.
Lo ensayan rápido, no empieza a ver